So since installing the skirting, our house has drastically changed. Our office space is a pleasure to work in. We're no longer in the kitchen, and because of that, come over here. Our desks were there, so we're now able to put white goods in here from the utility, and we've now got more space, and it feels like a proper kitchen. So the next thing we want to do is turn these dark, dingy doors into white doors. And we've got 8 like this and 2 with glass panels. And we were toying around with the idea of buying new doors and replacing them, but I know that's going to take quite a long time. And we were thinking about oak veneer. And when I thought about it, I think because they're a plain but textured door with all the grooves, I actually think it's going to look very classic with just white paint. And the other thing we have to do is update the handles. And I'm really not keen on these 80s handles, and some of them aren't in the best condition. So there's definitely a broken part there. So we're going to have a massive challenge to get all of these done within a week. It should brighten things up, save us a lot of money, because even if I did replace doors, go for cheap white panel doors, I'd still have to paint them anyway. And I've got to trim these doors, and it could scratch the floor. And this one stops at the rug. And we might replace these hinges as well, which I didn't think we'd have to do, but they're looking quite rusty. So that's what we're doing, but I wouldn't be doing that if they were absolutely plain with no texture. So if you come into the conservatory, this is where we're going to do a test like it's our little paint workshop, because I don't really mind getting paint on this floor. We're not going to keep these tiles anyway. So this is one of the double doors. We'll take the handles off and the hinges. It needs a very good clean. If you look closely, there is some lacquer damage. So we're going to have to do some prep. But the first thing I want to do is get all of my seedlings out. We need to do that sooner rather than later anyway, because if I keep them in here, they're going to die. And I spent a lot of time and money buying and prepping seedlings. So let's get those out. Hopefully we can do that over the next few evenings. I think I might just give them a satch in the sun. So a quick side note, I've been getting back into growing more homegrown veg this year, and to help me get started, I've been diving into some of the gardening classes on Craftsy, who are kindly sponsoring this video. Craftsy is your go-to online resource for all things creative, from gardening to sewing, painting, baking, and more. With over 2,000 classes taught by skilled instructors, it's really got my creative juices flowing. One class I particularly loved was DIY Weekends with Sarah Bendrick. She teaches how to build this space-saving pallet wood vertical planter, which I'm sure is going to be perfect for my extra seedlings like lettuce, chard and spinach. And inside the house, I've been brushing up on my sewing skills with their How to Sew Custom Curtains class. And what I love about Craftsy is that everything's broken down into step-by-step lessons, so it's really beginner friendly. Plus they're always adding new classes to keep things fresh and inspiring. And the first 1,000 of you to click on my link below will get a full year of premium Craftsy membership for just $1.49, which is an affordable price if you want to try something new on a budget. To ensure I can access everywhere, I first unscrew all of the hardware, which are these rusty hinges, and the slim chrome handles, but absolutely hate these tiny slotted screws, which I carefully have to remove with a handheld screwdriver. Now I'm just finding my method at the minute, but for the first set of doors, I clean them with warm sugar soap to remove the years of grime and dirt, then take them outside to hose down. So I've realised I've got to also rinse the sugar soap off, and I want them to dry quickly, so I'm washing them out here. Now as I've been touching it, I can find the odd little bit. I'm just lightly going over it with sandpaper to remove any of those tiny specks, and this is only a gentle key. Right, so the first split doors that I've just cleaned, I've actually come off this cupboard where the boiler is, and I thought actually all of the doors will need to be trimmed eventually by the time I put the thresholds in, and I haven't put the thresholds in because I want to do carpets and stuff in the right rooms first, then fit them. But I thought really I should be trimming them down now before I paint them. I don't want to, but I should do. So I've offered this door up and it's a little bit wedged in there and they are lined up with the hinges. So what I've done is cut an offcut of the threshold and I've placed it on the floor, overlapped it. I've had to put a packer there to get it level because this floor is higher than in there because we use some self-leveling compound. So while that's fairly level, I've used a ruler and I've drawn along it at the side. And you can see this has a rounded curve at the top and I've just measured the distance from the pencil line to the top of it, which is about 7 mil. I'm actually going to round it up to 1 centimetre because I still want some movement here. And by the way, you don't want to cut off too much off the bottom of the door because there's only so much thick wood there. If you do trim off more, you're going to have to reinsert it back. And I'll leave a link to a video that I've done in the past for that. Now, I don't recommend relying on whether the bottom of your door is straight because it could have already had a trim anyway. But I'm taking that chance. It looks straight to me. I've put some masking tape on there as well because I can see it and hopefully it will give a better cut. However, my favourite way to work out what to reduce from the bottom of the doors, which I did for the rest of them, was to mark 1 centimetre from the floor onto some masking tape so it didn't matter if the existing bottom gaps weren't perfectly level. To trim down, of course, I'm using a compact saw with the blade set a fraction deeper than the thickness of the door itself. And a quick sand to chamfer the edges to prevent any future snagging. So from this door onwards, I did all of the dusty, messy work first before cleaning thoroughly and giving it a coat of primer. Now I'm using some Zinsser primer, which I already had, particularly as I didn't want any bleed through, and apply it with a foam roller. And I took a chance doing this outside because of the lovely weather, while also hoping that bugs wouldn't interfere with the finish as they did when I painted doors years ago with oil-based paint. But this was the least of my worries because let's skip forward to a hotter day when it dried unevenly, creating clumpy patches, which I had to sand off once dry. So on future doors, I painted them all inside. So I've just spotted this veneer type thing that's coming away from the door. So I'm going to have to use some panel pins. And at this point, Mr. TCD finished priming them for me while I continued to trim down the next set of doors and remove the hardware. Ah, look. So whoever's fitted these doors, they've chiselled too much out because they've left a piece of cardboard there. We'll see how that goes when we put them back. I didn't want to be too aggressive sanding as they're light hollow core doors and the veneer is really just compressed card or MDF. And because of that, I also made sure that the water didn't sit on them for too long and lent them on the wall so any water could drip off while drying. After a coat of primer, I start rolling on our favourite satin wood paint by Johnston's. Well, technically I prefer Dulux Trades oil-based satin wood. I've always found it more hard wearing, but I hate that it yellows over time. So I think this water-based alternative strikes a good balance between durability and keeping a fresh white finish. So towards the end of the day yesterday, I had to bring them in and finish them in here because it was starting to get a bit damp out there. And these have had enough coats on now and I've offered it up and it looks fab, nice and bright. Mr. TCD's thoroughly cleaned all of the hardware and now I'm going to put them back. And once I've done that, I'm going to get them out of the way for now so we can paint more, but I can't hang them yet because I've had to order some new hinges because these ones are rusty. So I've ordered some chrome ones and a load of new handles and latches for the rest of the doors. Now these are the metal plates that will stick to the magnets inside the cupboards. We'll flip it over and get the handles on. I've had to move on to my little electrician one. Right, let's get that one out of the way. Do you want to have a see what it looks like? So I'll lean that there. So I'm going to take this one out and screw the handle elsewhere. So Mr. TCD's got more room to finish off painting the next doors because his primer has now dried. He's going to paint one side, then I'll show you what we've bought to continue painting two sides so we don't have to wait for the paint to dry. So for the first time, I'm going to be trying some painter's pyramids. and I've got 4 on the floor, and I'm going to place the painted surface on top of those, then I can continue painting the other. And hopefully these sharp points won't make much of an indent in the paintwork, and hopefully they'll be easy just to go over it anyway. So the sides haven't been painted yet, but now they're propped up, I can get to them a lot easier than before, because before they were against the floor and I would have just got dirt all over them. And the plan is both sides can be drying all at the same time and then ready for the next coat all at the same time. Right, so we're going to test to see what these pyramids are like. I can't see any marks. That's a good sign. I'll show you close up in a second. Let's just flip it over again. The other side is definitely dry now. I can see 2 small indents. So this needs another coat, and you can just see the little tiny indent there. And another one there. You can just about see it there. So I'm just going to try and key it slightly. Blend it to get it to blend in. I just don't think people are going to notice. Only me. Now when I flip it over, I'm going to get another indentation on this side. And I don't mind that because this is the back of the door. So I'm just going to flip it over and do one last coat on the other side, and it's ready to hang once I've got my hinges. Can I get a hand flipping this over, please? Just a heads up, the pyramids weren't always foolproof. So you need a steady hand while flipping over your painted piece. And also the tips do start to wear down and flatten over time. So I'm now at the point where I've taken a normal wide door off, and we're not sure what this is going to look like. We're worried it's going to look a bit too plain, so we're going to do a test on only one door. So I've come to my least favourite part of this project, which is painting this glass panel door. Now, you might be wondering, why is it white already? Why is the primer on it? Well, 2 nights ago, me and Mr. GCD came to the arrangement, well, I convinced him to paint it while I wipe the glass around it, rather than using masking tape, because masking tape takes ages, there's no guarantee, and it's just tedious. Anyway, we did one little test, and it got bleed through. So I had to clean it off anyway. Anyway, this time I've decided to test one of your ideas from a door painting project a few years ago, and that is using liquid masking tape instead, which you just brush on. I've no idea if it's any good yet. Anyway, I wanted to just use this now, expecting it to be dry within 10 minutes. On the back of this tub, it says dry in 1 to 2 hours. That's not what I wanted to hear. So I'm going to have to now paint all around the glass. I'm not going to waste it around the middle because it's not cheap. And I'll do the other side as well, leave those to dry, and then in the meantime, I'm going to have to hang some doors. So to give you some perspective, that took me about an hour to do both sides. That probably would have taken me the same amount with masking tape, but this should be more foolproof. Let's see. And where I've got it accidentally on the actual wood part, it just rubs off. I suppose in theory I shouldn't be too fussy about going to the corners. I think the areas where I think, oh, it's safe to rub, I've got a feeling no, because I think it's just pulled some away from here on the glass. Anyway, I'm going to carry on painting. So the door is now drying. It's had about 3 of the top coats. I just found I could still see a little bit of the original wood through from using a paintbrush around these details. So anyway, I'm leaving that. It might be touch dry now, but we'll hang that last. So now I want to hang the rest of the doors. Anyway, we'll work on the stationery room first. It does need to be fitted that way, but I can't get to the hinges, so I'm going to rotate this. And don't do that. So I've got my new hinges, which are stainless steel, and they're exactly the same size, 75mm butt hinges, and that's how they're going to fit on. I have noticed the odd screw hole doesn't line up perfectly, but as long as I get the majority in, I'm all right. I can force the others. Oh, this one's going to go on an angle because the screw hole's not perfect. That'll do. Right, next one. Right, I'm going to rotate it back. Now, don't forget that the door has been trimmed at the bottom for the threshold to slot underneath. So it's shorter, and I need to push it up and line it up. So I've got a load of offcuts from the doors that I'm just going to prop underneath. Almost there. Now, I could get Mr. TCD to help me hold the door up, but I just want to show you a way that you can try and do it on your own, particularly with light doors like these. Right, I've got one in. Now I can work on this one. Get rid of that. Right, let's just check this. Yeah, that's going to be all right. I'm going to bang the rest in. By the way, if you find your screw is constantly spinning, you could just put a matchstick in there with a bit of glue and then just screw it in, and you'll find that just nips it in. Now, something I want to point out is I ordered a load of new latches just to give it a spruce, but I can't get them in, and I just can't be bothered to try and chisel a load of holes out for a square to go in a round hole. So I'm going to go for the original ones because I can't be bothered and they still work. But the handles definitely needed to be changed. So I haven't chucked the original ones away, but the fact that I'm going to struggle drilling with a larger flatwood drill bit in an existing hole is just going to be too faffy. I think there's some build-up of pain. Because these are different screws, I don't want to keep changing the bits, so I've brought this little switch driver. Yeah, let's go the right way. So for the handles, I've gone for some Victorian scroll ones that I found very affordable at Toolstation, which is a damn sight better than the old ones. I've had those before as well. You can get them in a longer one, but my aim was also to cover the existing holes. So I'm now going to just line it up by eye and pre-drill the screw holes. And I found that if I do the bottom 2 first, I don't have to worry about lining it up at the top. And these come with the most annoying screws. They're pretty but annoying. And I found I more or less have to do this with a handheld. So the time's come to remove the liquid masking tape, and it's not going very well. I've realised that I should have bought one called H2O, which peels off like a polythene, but it was double the price. This was half the price and it was still expensive. So I'm going to show you what I'm having trouble with. Now, I knew I needed a Stanley knife to score where the paint overlapped, which is what I've been doing, going all the way around. And I'd be doing this with regular masking tape anyway. And I've got to be careful that I don't damage the paintwork. And I was hoping I could just pull it all in one piece. It gets quite stringy, stretchy and tears. Actually, that's one of the better ones so far. But as you do it, you'll find that the paint, in my case, is thicker, harder than the masking liquid, so it just snaps off. Sorry, I had to turn the work light off because you were getting flickers. So you just rub it off like that, and then you can pull it. But look, I mean, it could be me. I might not have applied enough. I was quite thin with it. But when I get to these ends, I've still got to scrape it off as well. Okay, it's probably not going to be as firm to the window, but it's still effort that I didn't want to have to do. And don't forget it's on the other side as well. So I've got to do this twice. I've got to do double the amount that you see. And where I have accidentally got the masking liquid on the wood and painted over it, I've been left with this, a little area here where you can see the original brown wood. So I'm going to have to do a touch-up on there if I can be bothered. Anyway, I'm going to have to stop there and do this over an evening or two. But overall, I'm very happy with how bright this hall is looking. There's no dark brown apart from in the kitchen, but we're definitely not there yet. But there's just something I feel like the doors are lacking, and that's a little bit of oomph. So I think instead of replacing the doors, what I'm tempted to do is add just a little bit of trim, not necessarily both sides, just for the hallway. We haven't decided that yet. And then do a little bit of touch-ups of paint. I think it will just add a bit more elegance. But I love how classic it is. I don't think it's dated anymore. It just needs a little bit of a wow factor. Anyway, let me know if you do anything differently, if you'd consider painting these doors, and if you've got any more tips and tricks, let me know and hopefully I'll try in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.